on with plant diversity. We're going to talk about seeded vascular plants now. These came about 360 million years ago. And these guys have all the adaptations for land that we talked about last time. That is vascular tissue, roots, true leaves, the reduction of the gametophyte. And in addition to that, they are heterosporous, meaning that they have a microspore is the male part, usually involving sperm or sperm cells, and a megaspore, which is the female part. And ovules, which are protecting the gametophyte, so that is a multicellular structure around the gametophyte. A pollen, which is protected by is protecting the gametophyte of the male, and in this case, it also has sporopollenin, which is protecting it from drying out, and it has seeds, of course, because otherwise they wouldn't be seeded, and this is protecting the embryo. And they have an increased reduction of the gametophyte in the life cycle. It's now, the gametophyte is now microscopic and perhaps only a few cells worth of the one in microscopic structure. So this is just in your book. They talk about, of course, the gametophyte in this case was the main part of the plant. And this is the mosses or bryophytes. And then in the next group, which is vascular but not seeded plants, the sporophyte becomes dominant, but there is a fairly large gametophyte that may or may not disappear in the life cycle. And then with both gymnosperms or seeded plants, which are going to include gymnosperms and angiosperms, now the sporophyte is completely dominant. And the only gametophyte is very, very small, and we will go through the life cycles and talk about that, all right? So one of the things, let's just talk about some terminology. One of the things that is important to know in the ovule, which is the protection of the gametophyte, so it's a multicellular 2N layer. And the ovule is going to include what they call an integument, a megasporangia, and a megaspore. The megaspore is the gametophyte. Both the megasporangia and the integument are 2N. That means that they are the sporophytic part of the structure. So the ovule then is layers of sporophyte tissue that protect the they include the integuments, and in one they will have one in gymnosperms and two in angiosperms integuments. Okay. The other thing is that the megaspore is actually a multicellular structure as it matures. It's not shown multicellular here, but it will be. Also the microspore, it is the male part. And this is a protecting, it's basically going to make a pollen grain, and this is protecting the male gametophyte. And the pollen grains themselves are protected by sporopollenin, which is a hydrophobic polymer. We kind of talked about them before, it's sort of waxy. And the part that is the sporophyte, or the 2N structure, is the sporophyll, which surrounds what they call sporocytes. Each one of those sporocytes is going to undergo meiosis and create 4 sperm microspores, and then those will do mitosis and create the multicellular gametophyte. And we'll talk again more about that later. In some gymnosperms, the microspores are flagellated. Most of them, they are not. Like pines, for example, they are not. All right. So let's just go through the groups. The groups are, I forgot to mention, pollen is spread by wind, water, animals, and of course that's to fertilize the megaspore. And gymnosperms are called, this is the classification. Gymnosperms are one of the groups of seeded vascular plants. Remember, the other group is angiosperms. Gymnosperms, the term means naked seeds. And it is, that means that it is not in an ovary. So an ovary, you're going to see, is going to become a fruit of flowering plants. In this case, there is no ovary that is surrounding the seed. And these bare cones, and also called strobili, and all of these groups do that in various ways. All right, so the first kind is Cycadophyta, and these are cycads. You might know some of them, sago palms, for example, zamia. And they have fairly large cones, frond-like leaves, so they sort of look like palms. There's 130 species, and they use them a lot in landscaping, so you might know these. Ginkgophyta, it has fan-shaped leaves, very unique sort of leaves. They're very resistant to air pollution, so they used to plant them in cities a lot. And they are dioecious. So I'm just introducing that term. What that means is they have to have a male and female plant in order to produce fruits. And the fruits are really stinky, so a lot of times they'll just plant the male plants, not the female plants, so that they don't make fruits because they're kind of nasty. The third one is Cnidophyta. These are Cnidum, Epiphedra, and Welwitschia. Well, all of these, none of these are, as far as I know, found in Florida. And they don't look alike at all, so it's hard to know why they're in the same group, but basically that's based on molecular data. And Coniferophyta are pines and yews and cypress, larches. All of these are evergreen. Evergreen means that they keep their leaves throughout the year in a green form. They do lose leaves and get new ones, but they are always doing photosynthesis in some part of the plant. There's a lot of these, 600 species of them. So let's just briefly go through the life cycle. The life cycle includes, okay, so the main part of the plant is going to be the sporophyte, the pine tree, and it is going to produce both male and female cones, but this is monoecious. That means that they are found on the same plant. And the female cone is bigger, and you can see here how the cone is a modified branch, because this would be a branch with many scales that they call them, but like little branchlets coming off of the main axis, and at the base of these branches are the ovules, all right? And in the case of the male one, it's the same thing, but it's like a little smaller scale. They have, again, a branch with the scales coming off, and at the base they will have this microsporangia, all right? So what's going to happen in the female one, let's talk about that one first, is that they're going to have, so this is the two-in part of the structure. They have this ovule here, and it's going to undergo like the sporocyte, or megasporangia is like the material surrounding the megasporocyte. All of this is two-in at this point. It undergoes meiosis and creates four, let's see if you can see that, 4 haploid cells, of which one survives and becomes the megaspore, and the other 3 just get reabsorbed, all right? So that's going to become the egg cell. The archegonium then is like the sporangia, right? So that becomes the archegonium surrounding the egg, all right? Then what's going to happen is it will do mitosis and create 2 cells, 2 egg cells, okay? And these are 1-in. So this is the female gametophyte, all right? So the multicellular 1-in structure, all right? In the male, it's the same kind of idea. In this case, the microsporangia surrounds the microsporocytes. They are going to undergo meiosis and create these pollen grains. In the pollen grains, they have their 1-in, or they're the gametophyte. They're also going to do mitosis. And I'll talk about that with another picture because it shows it a little bit better. All right, so then what's going to happen is that these guys are going to meet. That is, one of the sperm cells, of which there are 2, is going to meet with one of the egg cells, all right? And when it does that, it's going to fertilize and make a new embryo. This is a zygote first, and then it'll make like a little baby tree. And on the base of each one of these cone things, there are 2 of these. So this is happening twice. So just if you looked at the base, you could see 2 of these. You might have seen these before. Squirrels love them, so you might have seen them in your yard. And then one of those will drop on the ground, and it will start growing into the sporophyte. So that's the main life cycle. Just looking at this, though, this is in your lab book, so I just wanted to mention this about the multicellular part for the male. Okay, so once these pollen grains are formed, they have a 1N cell, and that 1N cell is going to undergo mitosis and make 2 cells. These 2 cells are called the tube cell, which is going to end up growing into the pollen tube, and the generative cell, which then divides again through mitosis, making 3 nuclei, and this is the multicellular male part. One of the cells is going to grow into the pollen tube, and the other 2 are the sperm nuclei, one of which is going to fertilize the megaspore, or the egg. All right?